Hello everybody, it's Sarah and I am sorry for not uploading yesterday, but I was actually just really dead tired yesterday. I actually went to sleep at 9 p.m, which is quite early for me, so yeah. So because of that, I thought that I just pushed a video that I had planned for yesterday anyway, one day back, because today it fits even better, because I once again want to talk about my favorite relationships in fiction. Now, I have obviously already done these types of videos before, so I will try not to repeat any relationships from previous videos, but I think we're gonna be quite safe because I chose mostly relationships from books that I read in 2021 for the first time, and since the last time that I did this type of video was Valentine's Day 2021, we should be a-okay. And so yes, before we get into the relationships, you will find 3 types of relationships in this video. The first of those is relationships that I actively ship and that are canon. The second are relationships that I ship, but where I won't tell you if they're canon or not, because that would be spoiler territory. And then the third type of relationship are relationships that I don't necessarily ship, where I don't think that they're a great romance or that they would make a great couple or anything, but where I think that their dynamic is very interesting and adds to the story for me. And so let's start with one of those types of relationships, which is Luke and Eddie from The Invisible Life of Eddie LaRue. Now, I will not go into the premise of the books or, you know, summaries of the books for most of these relationships. However, I feel like I need to tell you a little bit of a premise for this book, just so you can understand why I find this relationship dynamic so interesting. And that is because in this book, for those of you who don't know, which I believe most of you do, basically we follow Eddie LaRue, who at the beginning of the 18th century made a deal with an entity of darkness, with the darkness personified basically, who she then later comes to call Luke. And the deal basically is she wants to live a life of freedom, free of social constraints, and she will give Luke her soul once she's done with her life. So she wants to be immortal basically until the point where she doesn't want to be anymore. And so Luke gives her that bargain, but he adds a little something on top of that to, you know, make her actually want to give up her life. And that is that Eddie cannot leave her mark on the world. She cannot change things, break things, she cannot be in pictures, photographs, music. She cannot hurt people, but it can also not be hurt herself, physically at least. And also people will forget her as soon as they turn away from her. And that is actually where the interesting dynamic between Luke and Eddie comes in, because we follow Eddie over 300 years of her life, and over those 300 years she never has anyone who remembers her, and so the only person who remembers her and who she can build a relationship with is Luke, is the person who put her in this predicament in the first place. And so she very much has a love-hate relationship with Luke, which I just found incredibly interesting to follow. And I need to change my battery. So I am back, and let's continue on with the second book I have on my list, or the second relationship I have on my list, that is from a book or series that I already read pre-2021, and that is Irene and Kai from the Invisible Library series. Their relationship starts out at the beginning of this book. Irene is a librarian spy. She belongs, or she works for this entity called the Invisible Library, and basically that means that she travels to different parallel Earths, parallel universes, stealing books and bringing them back to the library. And Kai at the beginning of the first book is introduced to us, and is also introduced to Irene because Irene is supposed to take him on as an apprentice. Now, this is a relationship where I will not tell you whether or not they end up in a romantic relationship. I can tell you that talk of a relationship, of romantic involvement between the two is happening at specific points within the books. But what I always very much enjoy is that, for example, especially at the beginning of the series, whenever, for example, Kai proposes to start a romantic relationship, Irene very much, even though she does feel attracted to Kai, says no, it's not okay, because we do have potentially problematic power dynamics between us. I am your teacher, you are my apprentice, I have power over you in that way. And so first of all, that is just something that I really appreciate throughout the series. And whether or not they end up in a romantic relationship, they do grow to very much love each other, be that platonic or romantic. And I just love how well the two of them communicate with each other from the very beginning. And I love how, you know, serious they are and how they talk to each other and how they don't cut each other out. And how, for example, at a few points within the series, and why, whether or not it's happening by the end of the series or not, from the very beginning I was just, I need the two of them to get together. And I can't tell you if by the end of it I'm angry or I'm happy, but something that I just really appreciate is that it doesn't fall into the trope of, you know, I care for you, whether as a friend or as a love interest. I care for you and I am going into danger, so I won't tell you where I'm going, so I won't take you into danger with me. But that there's a few instances where Irene specifically is like, no, he's like he's gonna follow me, so I would rather you come along with me right away and I be open towards you, what I'm gonna do, that I'm gonna put myself in danger, that you would be put into danger if you came with me, and you can then make that decision on your own whether you want to come with me or not. And that the two of them just hardly ever take away agency from the other. So that is just something where I really, really love the two of them. And I just think on all levels their relationship is so healthy, like even as friends. So the third relationship I want to talk about, I just want to mention very quickly because we actually only get to see it in the third book of the series. So I would have to go through a lot of spoilery stuff to explain to you exactly how we got to this relationship and stuff. But anyway, I'm talking about Thera and Takwal from the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. I'm holding up the second book right here because this is where we're introduced to both characters for the first time. And yeah, Thera has multiple love interests throughout the series. I do not know yet with whom she's gonna end up by the end of it. I know that I'm like almost betraying the queers, the sapphics, by not saying Thera and Somi, who is the second love interest that Thera has. But to be honest, I felt like we didn't really get to see that much of the two of them, and I just really enjoy the dynamic between Thera and Takwal in the third book. Because the two of them, I don't think that would be a spoiler that much. The two of them start out in an arranged marriage, and it's a political fantasy, so, you know, there's arranged marriages all around. But yeah, the two of them start out in an arranged marriage, and I quite often, to be honest, in a lot of books, I love arranged marriages for the dynamics that they can put on page. Does that make sense? Like, I think arranged marriages have something about them because there's not romance as the basis of a relationship, but there is need and there's politics, and it forces the two characters to work together in ways that you don't have in your like meet cute insta-lovey romances. And so that is also the case, without spoilers, with Thera and Takwal. I won't go any more into it. But yeah, I just really enjoy the development of the relationship that we see in book 3. I'm not done yet with book 3, to be honest. I am right now at a point where something absolutely horrible happened for their relationship. Well, not for their relationship, but to them. So I am very scared for them right now. And so yes, let's move on to the next relationship. Next, I have Luca and Turenne from The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, which again is not necessarily a couple that I ship actively, but then again, I'm not really someone who ships characters all that often. For me, it's all about interesting dynamics, whatever it is, and not really that much about romance, not in the first place at least. And so Luca and Turenne, we have once again a very interesting dynamic between the two of them, because Luca is a colonizer. She is the heir to the country that colonized Turenne's people, and that, you know, is part of the country that took Turenne from her people to then make her a conscript in the army that, you know, is part of the country that Luca is the heir of. Wow, I feel like I just made it way too confusing. And so obviously Luca is the colonizer, Turenne is the colonized, which is a very, very interesting dynamic. I remember that, like, little caveat, I remember that when I started this book, when the relationship started, I felt like it was a bit quick. I have to be honest, I don't really remember if it was because it felt insta-lovey to me or if it was because we had a time jump and it just, like, from one scene to the other, some time passed and suddenly their relationship was somewhere completely different. But yeah, there's definitely attraction between Turenne and Luca, and it just makes the story very interesting to me because we see most of it through Turenne's eyes, and Turenne's, because of her feelings and her attraction towards Luca, you know, it's part of what plays into the divided and the split loyalties that she feels throughout this book, where she kind of feels loyalties for 3 different people or 3 different groups of people. One of those people obviously being Luca, but then also the rebels that we see throughout this book that is fighting to get rid of the colonizers. And so yes, it just makes the dynamic very, very interesting to me. So we're on the last 3 relationships. The last 2 are relationships that I actively ship. And now, first, however, I want to go with a relationship where, once again, I don't really ship them, but I just love their dynamic so much and their development throughout the book. But first, I have to, once again, look at what one of the names is. So looked at it again, and the relationship is Misaki and Takeru from The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. But yeah, the reason why I find this book so interesting, or this relationship so interesting, is because Takeru is not a person we're supposed to sympathize with at the beginning of the story. And Takeru very much is a traditionalist, he's a misogynist, he's very much clipping Misaki's wings. He does not really know his wife, he does not really intend to know his wife, he's not interested in getting to know his wife, at least at the beginning of the story. And again, with this relationship, I cannot really go into why I find it so interesting because of spoilers. But yeah, anyway, so that's Takeru. On the other hand, we have Misaki, who grew up quite free. She went to a city and to a school where it's not usual, like she went out of country for her schooling. She has a past that not many people know about, and she has returned home to her country to marry and has now been married for, I don't know, 10+ years. And she just feels suffocated in the roles that have been given to her as a housewife and mother. And she's not in love with Takeru, and Takeru is not in love with her. And so that is pretty much where we start out this book. And so you're probably asking yourself why I would mention this relationship in a video about my favorite relationships, because that does not sound like a great relationship, and that does not sound like a relationship that I would want to ship. Like, why would I ship anyone with a misogynistic asshole who only cares about himself and doesn't care about his wife? And you are right, I do not ship this relationship, but it's just hard to explain why I enjoy this relationship so much throughout this book, because again, spoilers, but it's just a really, really interesting relationship once they start talking to each other, once the plot of this book happens, how the relationship develops, how the relationship has to develop, how they have to change as people to kind of start getting along with each other, and the hardships both of them now have to face together. And it just makes for such an interesting dynamic. Like, I still don't like Takeru, but by the end of the book I can kind of start empathizing with him, which just, I don't know, I think the relationship is really well written and really well done and just very realistic in a certain way. I don't know how else to explain it. Okay, last 2 books, last 2 relationships. First I have The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. And there's actually multiple ships in this series that I highly enjoy, especially with the main character Ren, because I think that all potential love interests that are introduced to us for her are love interests that have a very unique and very interesting chemistry with her and very interesting dynamic with her. And so we have kind of 4 potential love interests in the first book. I won't say how many of those are still there by the end of the second book. Well, not by the end of the second book, by the beginning of the second book. So we have the Rook, we have Leata, we have Vargo, and we have Grey. And I love all of them, but the one that I love the most is Grey, and that is mostly down to what happens in the second book. Once again, this is a relationship, this is a ship. I'm not even gonna call it a relationship, this is a ship where I won't tell you if it's gonna be canon or not, because as I said, there are very many potential ships for Ren already at the beginning of the first book, but especially by the end of the first book. So yeah, not gonna go into any spoilers, but the reason why I especially ship Ren and Grey is because of the way their dynamic develops in the second book. I mean, we can go Vargo and Ren, which would be, you know, low-key toxic ship, which is also very nice. But Ren and Grey is just the wholesome, healthy ship, which maybe not that healthy because there are very many secrets between the two of them. Ren has a bunch of secret identities, and she does have a lot of conflict in the second book with herself. You know, she's conflicted in the second book, let's put it like that, because she wants to tell Grey about some places, and with Grey in the second book is like the first time she has the chance to feel at home, like not with him as a person, but he gives her the chance to be in a surrounding where she feels at home and where she feels like she's part of a family for the first time since her childhood. And it's just, I love the two of them. They are so cute and so adorable, and they are just, I love them. I love them so much. And I did not think that I would love them that much at the end of the first book, because we do not get to see a lot of Grey and Ren interactions in the first book, but the second book is just so well done. Love them. When I was reading it, I was literally screaming and screeching and flailing in bed because it was so cute. So the last one, which currently is honestly my #1 spot in terms of my favorite relationships, and people who have talked to me a lot recently will instantly know what series and what relationship I'm talking about. Like, you know, if you know, you know. But that relationship is our polyamorous triangle of Tereth, Kieran, and Channel. Because Chanel, I don't know how to pronounce her, whatever. And I listened to these on audio, like partially listened to these on audio, and I still don't remember how to pronounce the names. But yeah, first of all, it's polyamorous. What do we want more? It's a proper triangle. What do we want more? But I just also love the dynamics. With the first book, we're only introduced to Tereth and Kieran. We aren't introduced to Channel yet, but I already love the two of them. Kieran, in the first book, he's still all like, no, I'm straight, I like women. What are you talking about? I don't like men. I don't think you're really, really fuckable. It's whatever, it's whatever. So yeah, Kieran is a bisexual in denial. Tereth is a bisexual who is very aware of his bisexuality and also is very aware of his attractiveness. And so yeah, the two of them and their chemistry in the first book is already great. And then it's like the relationship as two is already great, but then you add Channel to the mix and it just completes the relationship in a way that you didn't know it needed completion, because Channel is really the glue between the two. Channel is the one who tells Kieran to suck it up and to be like, the dude loves you, you love the dude, like, get over your sensibilities. I know you grew up in a homophobic society, but like, get over it. And she's just, I love her so much, and she cares so much about the two, and the two of them also obviously care so much about her. But yeah, Channel is the enabler. She is the one who has all the brain cells in the relationship. Like, she sometimes lends some to Tereth. Kieran never has any brain cells in the relationship, like ever. He has minus brain cells. Channel has to make up for the minus brain cells that Kieran has. And I love the three. I love the three so much. And yeah, that was it for my favorite relationships currently that I have read in the past year and a bit more in fiction. Tell me in the comments down below if you love any of these relationships as much as I do, and if you have other relationships that you really love in these books or in other books, also tell me in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will be left linked down below. Also, by the way, if you want to meet these lovely people, I am currently hosting a read-along for this series to prepare for the release of the final book, so that is also in the Discord for my book club, so if you're interested in joining, just check it out. And yeah, with all of that said, I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!